All right, this brings us almost to the end of Act 1, which I think I'm going to bookend. All right, so I'm going to tell a story far-flung. I'm going to tell a story about war. Because when war happens, people are far-flung. Soldiers and the young are scooped up and shipped off to die in droves on foreign shores, which is either tragic or wonderful, depending on if you win. And this is a story about the least necessary and most avoidable war that there ever was. And it's far-flung enough because it takes place in what is now part of the EU, which is very far away, all right? They have food on the shelves, they have petrol in their tankers, all right? Okay, just try and imagine the luxury. It's hard. But they don't have blue passports, right? So who's the real winners here? Here we go. Politics aside, this story starts, as all good stories start, in Greece. Woo! Yeah! In Greece and high Olympus where the 12 Olympians live, the most important gods who rule over the mortal realm, who govern the affairs of men, who decree who shall live and who shall die, who oversee the fates, the moirai, as they cut the strings and measure out mortal lifespans, who prophesy and play great games and drink far too much, and they have great parties where revelry is the order of the day, and they conjure up gods from all across Greece. Other pantheons are sometimes invited. But one goddess who's never invited, her name is Eris. And Eris is the goddess of discord. And she was... there's a bit of in the room. You're welcome to breathe through your teeth at home. When you hear the name Eris, goddess of discord, you can imagine you're a plumber going, oh, what cowboy done this? This is going to be expensive, and it probably is. You see, Eris happened to be a professional. She happened to be really good at her job. She took pride in it. And that meant that she wasn't goddess of discord 9 to 5, take the hat off when we get home and have a pleasant evening with the kids. No. She was a goddess of discord full time, right? We're talking 100-hour work weeks. She stopped to sleep, and sometimes not even then. And the problem with being a really competent, really professional goddess of discord is that discord follows you everywhere. And discord, it turns out, sucks. Because you turn up for a pleasant evening with your friends, you're going to have some teas and talk about your lives, and lightning strikes their house, and suddenly 3 separate hornets' nests that had been there dormant the whole time emerge, and the evening is quite ruined. Weddings are right out. You turn up and the bride is dead, and the groom has been having a long-term affair, and there's blood everywhere, and right. And pretty soon, Eris stops getting invited to parties. And that would be harsh enough to deal with. But Eris just thought, well, maybe they're busy, or maybe they're trying to socially distance, and the guest lists have got to be small, and I can zoom in. But she found herself getting edged off of Olympus. She started living near the 12 Olympians, right in the very centre of the great mountain. But she was slowly redistricted and zoned out and frankly priced out because she wasn't a very wealthy goddess. And she was pushed, well, goddess of discord, her bank balance was in disarray. And I've paid that charge, hello? And she was pushed into the outskirts, and then the suburbs, and then the sub-suburbs that people claim is Hove, but we all know is really nowhere near. And she was forced gradually down into the foothills surrounding Olympus, and she could almost deal with this indignity until one day a bunch of travellers, pilgrims, wanderers came by, and they were singing praise for the great gods, and they were looking up at the cloud-stricken Olympus and going, oh my goodness me, we've come from the West Country, oh my goodness me, Oh, imagine what it'd be like to live up there, eh? Imagine what it'd be like to go and visit the gods. God, not for the likes of us, is it? They say, nudging Eris, not for the likes of us. Oh, I don't know, maybe we're too ugly or stupid to be gods. And Eris looked at this and looked up, and with her godlike vision, she saw on high Olympus that the 12 Olympians were laughing their heads off. Look at Eris, she's being mistaken for a mortal. Oh, how wonderful it is that she isn't here. And Eris swore vengeance. The goddess of discord reached into the ether and began to form a great golden orb, spinning and spiraling out of cloud and the raw stuff of nothing, and she pushed all of her malice, all of her resentment, and all of her powers of discord into one fruit, an apple, a golden apple that shone. Oh, it looked beautiful. Oh, it looked appetizing. Oh, it was clearly toxic. And attached to this apple, she left a single note that said, no, we can do better. That's the one. For the fairest goddess. And she hefted it, and she hurled it up to high Olympus, and the apple flew through the air, cleaving a path through the clouds, a golden trail blazing in the sky, and all the mortals went, ooh. And the apple landed right in the centre of the main table in the main hall on high Olympus. Smack bang between Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera, queen of the gods. And Hera, queen of the gods, reached over daintily with a fork and began to pluck the apple off the table and said, oh, sisters, see, someone has sent me an apple. And Athena said, Hera, great goddess, Hera, great fallible goddess, Hera. You who are queen of all the gods by dint of your marriage. Well done, yes. You are certainly greatest of the gods by weight, perhaps. But fairest, surely fairest means most even-handed. Fairest means most just, and maybe most deserving of the apple, said Athena, reaching out to pluck the apple from Hera's fork. But she barely got it halfway across the table when Aphrodite leaned over and said, Oh, Athena, precious, darling, sweetheart, I'd be really happy to help you out here. I didn't know that being fair was something you were interested in. You've never shown much aptitude for it, so I just assumed. If I'd known, babe, I've got so much I could teach you, like so much. You need a lot of help. And she reached over for the apple, and this it started badly and it got much, much worse. There weren't just dirty looks across the table for long. This was a full-on Twitter storm, and these goddesses, they were at each other's throats. And this meant that things were pretty difficult down in the mortal realm, because when the goddesses of wisdom and female retribution and beauty are in conflict with each other, it causes echoes. But the person who felt it the most was Zeus. His home was in disharmony, and he didn't like his home to be in disharmony. He liked his home to be a quiet place that he could wander in after a week on the lash, come in, collapse, sleep with something, wake up and go and do it again. And that was not what his home was. He came back through the Doric columns going, Hephaestus and I have done getting... Oh, they're still at it. And he could hear the shouts and the jeers and the screams of these goddesses around the golden apple. And eventually Zeus had had enough. And he used his big outside voice, and he said, enough! And when Zeus uses his big outside voice, clouds ripple across the heavens, and there was a darkness that spread all across Greece, and thunderstorms struck thoroughly undeserving fishing boats. And Zeus said, no, I won't have this anymore, you hear me? I'm going to decree, as king of the gods, that this apple should go to... And he looked at the beautiful Aphrodite, at the very intelligent, wise, and powerful Athena, and at his wife Hera. There's gonna go to one of the goddesses to be decided by a 15-year-old boy. And Athena stepped forward going, because she could see with all of her wisdom that this was not a wise decision, but Zeus had spoken. And not just any 15-year-old boy, said Zeus, who was now on a roll. He felt like he'd really ducked the responsibility for this one. That one there! And all eyes turned to a 15-year-old boy who was currently on a diplomatic mission. He was on a diplomatic mission from the city-state where he and his brother were set to take over one day. His father, King Priam, had sent the young 15-year-old Paris, his older, much cooler, much more handsome, much better brother, Hector, off to try and sign a treaty with King Menelaus. Now, King Menelaus in the actual story is, he's kind of king of kings. I don't know who wrote this, but they went, and he's got wonderful hair, and he's really handsome, and he's really cool. But when I tell the story, King Menelaus is toothless and a little bit haggard. King Menelaus, he's wise and he's just, but he's also ancient. And he's doing his best to try and entertain these Trojan princes, Paris and Hector. And the gods on high Olympus look down at the young 15-year-old Paris, who is locked away in his room on a ship doing whatever it is that 15-year-olds do when they're alone in their rooms. And they look at him busily engaged, and Zeus says, that's the one, I'll break it to him, I'll take that responsibility. You see, I'm a leader, says Zeus. And in a flash of lightning, he appeared, searing a hole, setting a small fire on the ship. And Paris stopped doing whatever it is he was doing, desperately tried to dress himself as a god was now in his presence, and Zeus staggered against one of the pillars. Paris, dear boy, you're going to do me a solid, so you are. You're going to be great for me. Listen, I'm Zeus. Hey, I've got a bit of a problem. I need you to choose which of the three goddesses is fairest. See if you can get him to give you stuff. That's what I'd do. That's my advice. Now, I suspect this isn't gonna get handled very well, so I'm gonna go on another bender and hopefully it's done when I come back. Come on, Eris, let's get mashed. And with a Zeus was gone. Well, the first goddess to appear was Hera. She didn't like the situation she'd be put in, but this was where she was and she was going to make the best of it. And Hera appeared clad head to toe in white with golden trim. She looked beautiful. She looked regal. With a silver circlet around her head, she almost shone with an aura of majesty and power. And Paris felt himself bowing in her presence. And she looked at him and she went, still got it. And she said, Paris, my boy, you are a prince of Troy, but as things stand, your older brother Hector will inherit the throne. You will never see much true power. I can give you power. I can make you a king among kings. I can raise your state, Troy, up to the highest of echelons. I can give you power over all of Greece. Your name could echo through history. Choose me as the fairest goddess. And Paris went, and he didn't know what to do. What do you say to an offer like that? But her time was up, and Hera disappeared, almost as swiftly as she'd arrived. Well, Athena came next, and Athena had taken the opportunity to really dress up for this. So she was wearing her crested helmet, she had her great big battle shield, she had her spear made out of 1,000 oak trees that had been condensed down into a solid point. She had her battle dress on, she even had her mechanical owl for show, because that's how Athena rolls. She turned up with a show-off owl, and that did the job. Paris was like, wow, she's got an owl. And Athena turned up and said, Paris, so young and yet so wise already, an old head on young shoulders. But the wisdom you have is tempered by the impetuousness of youth and the fallibility of your mortal mind. I can help you with that. I can grant you wisdom beyond mortal ken. And Paris looked at her and he went, I don't know what again is. And she looked at him and said, you will. And Paris went, right. But her time was up and Athena disappeared. And Aphrodite was the last goddess to make her pitch to the young Prince Paris, and she turned up wearing something slinky and entirely impractical. Probably very uncomfortable, but she'd had all of the previous 2 pitches to squeeze herself into it, and she arrived stumbling a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, she said, giggling a little bit and playing with her hair. And Paris, the 15-year-old, went crimson and looked at her, and she said, oh, I'm sorry, I feel really ill-prepared for this. I'm not the queen of the gods, I'm not the goddess of wisdom. I can't offer you power like Hera did. I can't offer you wisdom like Athena. All I could offer you, in my paltry little way, is the most beautiful woman in the world. And Paris went, that one, done! I pick that one. And the other goddesses were furious, but that was the decision that had been made, and Zeus was busy, so he didn't have to deal with the aftermath. And they watched as Aphrodite picked up the golden apple of discord, shining and beautiful, and she took a bite out of it, right in her sisters' faces. And as the golden juices dribbled down her perfect chin, it tasted disgusting. But true to her word, she gave to Paris the most beautiful woman in the world. And the most beautiful woman in the world, she was so lovely. She was so beautiful, so graceful, so obviously already married to somebody else. And the person that she was already married to, Helen, the fairest of all, was married to Menelaus. Menelaus, the king that Paris was currently trying to sign a treaty with. And so it was that when Paris returned in the boat all the way back to Troy, he returned with his older brother Hector, he returned with a signed trade deal, they do exist, and he returned with the beautiful Helen with him, snuck away from her husband. And the pair of them spent the entire journey locked away in his room on the boat, doing whatever it is young men and women do, locked away in their bedrooms. And when he heard that his wife, Helen, the fairest of all, had run away with the young Paris, this Trojan prince, this bastard, what did Menelaus do? Well, Menelaus thought for a while. Menelaus racked his brains. He knew he'd have to construct some sufficient punishment, something that would really, really show it to Paris, something like that. And so he called across to all of Greece, to the islands of Ithaca, to the island of Crete, to Naxos, to everywhere he could, far afield as his tendrils could reach, and he was a king, so they spread pretty far, and he called for the greatest bards and wordsmiths and songsmiths and poets, and he said, I want you to write bad poetry about Paris. I want you to tell everyone how big his nose is, and what an unsatisfying lover he is, and that'll show him. And so he spent the next 2 years commissioning terrible poems and really unflattering portraits of Paris, which he had sent to Troy. And Menelaus would have been sort of happy with that. That was vengeance for him. He was like, well, there we go, that's something sorted. And that might have been the end of the story. But Menelaus had a brother. And Menelaus' brother was not someone you wanted to trifle with. Menelaus' brother was a bear of a man. He was a warrior, and he was a warrior king, and he had almost single-handedly crushed most of ancient Greece. Almost every city-state in Greece bowed before this man, and his name was Agamemnon. What was his name?
Agamemnon!
Now you gotta say it like you're conjuring a great war hero. Agamemnon!
Agamemnon!
There we go. Yeah, that's right at home. Agamemnon. And Agamemnon came to visit his brother Menelaus, and Agamemnon was racking his brains because there was one city-state that eluded him. One part of Greece that still resisted his attempts to defeat them, and that was the impregnable city-state of Troy, an island fortress that had never fallen and probably never would, because it would take 100,000 men to take Troy. It would take the combined forces of Greece, and it's quite hard to convince the combined forces of Greece to send the flower of their manhood, to send all of their heroes, all of their young men off to die on foreign shores in a war that may last for 10 years. And Agamemnon was looking for some casus belli. He was looking for an excuse, something that would fire up the hearts of his men, something that all of Greece could unite behind, some injustice to bring them to war. And Menelaus said, "Oh, brother, yes, come. I've had these poems written, you see." And he started to read these poems to his brother. And Agamemnon said, "Stop! Why have you constructed these poems about Paris?" "Oh, he stole my wife." "He stole your wife, you say?" said Agamemnon. And he had in that moment his cause for war. And he sent round his ships. He sent round Palamedes and Ajax and Achilles and Odysseus, and he rounded up the heroes of Greece. And he sent them off to fight and die on the beaches of Troy, a war that lasted 10 years, and for Odysseus another 10 getting home, a war that cost everyone their lives, a war that split the gods straight down the middle, Poseidon taking the Trojan side, Athena favouring Odysseus and the Greeks, and the war that tore the islands of Greece apart and cost them more blood than has been spilled in Greece to this day. And a war that could have been avoided had the goddesses been slightly nicer to Eris, the goddess of discord. And we all have an Eris, the goddess of discord, in our lives. Someone who brings nothing but chaos. Someone whose influence appears to be entirely malign and full of havoc. But someone who maybe we should make time for, lest the same thing befall us. Thank you very much, everybody. Grazie, grazie. All right. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.